Hello, everyone. I'm reading today. We're going to be doing a little meditation out of the new Meditation Handbook by GesheKelsanf Gyatso, and we're on the intermediate scope, and we're going to just read from the book. So it said, taking rebirth in a fortunate realm such as the human realm is only like taking a short vacation if after we have to descend to the lower realms and once again experience extreme suffering for an inconceivably long time. We experience suffering because we are in samsara. If we think deeply about this, we will realize that we want real freedom and happiness. We must abandon samsara. By practicing the stages of the path of a person of intermediate scope, we'll abandon samsara and attain permanent inner peace, completely free of all suffering, fear, and their causes. This is real liberation. The purpose for this meditation is to develop realization of renunciation, a spontaneous wish to attain the liberation from samsara, the cycle of contaminated rebirth. Renunciation is the gateway through which we enter the path of liberation or Nirvana, the permanent inner peace attained through the complete abandoning of the ignorance of self-grasping. In itself, our human rebirth is true suffering. It is precious and valuable only if we use it to train our spiritual paths. We experience various types of suffering because we have taken a rebirth that is contaminated by the inner poison of delusions. This experience has no beginning because we have taken contaminated rebirth since the beginningless time, and we have no end until we attain the supreme inner peace of Nirvana. If we contemplate and meditate on how we experience suffering and difficulties through this life and life after life, we will come to the strong conclusion that every single one of our sufferings and problems arise because we have taken contaminated rebirth. We will then develop a strong wish to abandon the cycle of contaminated rebirth, samsara. This is the first step towards attaining the happiness of Nirvana. From this point of view, the contemplating and meditating on suffering has great meaning. For as long as we remain in the cycle of contaminated rebirth, suffering and problems will never end. To experience them over and over every time we take rebirth. Although we cannot remember our experience while we were in our mother's womb or during our very early childhood, the sufferings of human life began from the time of our conception. Everyone can see that a newborn baby experiences anguish and pain. The first thing a baby does when it is born is scream. Rarely has a baby ever been born in complete serenity with peaceful, smiling expression on its face. In the following contemplations, we think about the various sufferings experienced in the human realm, but we should keep in mind that the sufferings of other realms are generally far worse. Birth. When our consciousness first enters the union of our father's sperm and our mother's ovum, our body is hot, a watery substance like white yogurt tinted red. In the first moment after conception, we have no gross feelings, but as soon as these develop, we begin to experience pain. Our body gradually becomes harder and harder, and our limbs grow. It feels like as if our body is being stretched on a rack. Inside, our mother's womb is hot and dark. Our home for 9 months is a small, tightly compressed space full of unclean substances. It is like being squashed inside a small water tank full of filthy liquid with the lid tightly shut so no air or light can come through. When we are in our mother's room, we experience much pain and fear of our own. We are extremely sensitive to everything our mother does. When she walks quickly, it feels as though we are falling from a high mountain and we are terrified. If she has sexual intercourse, it feels as being crushed and suffocated between two huge weights and we panic. If our mother makes a small jump, it feels as we are being thrown against the ground from a great height. If she drinks anything hot, it feels like boiling water is scalding our skin. And if she is drinking anything cold, it feels as if an icy cold shower in midwinter. When we are emerging from our mother's room, it seems like we are being forced through a narrow crevasse between two hard rocks, and we are newly born, our body is so delicate that any kind of contact is painful. Even if someone holds us tenderly, his or her hands feel like thorn bushes perceiving our flesh, and the most delicate fabrics feel rough and abrasive. By comparison with the softness and the smoothness of our mother's womb, every tactile sensation is harsh and painful. If someone picks us up, it feels as if we were swung over a huge precipice, and we feel frightened and insecure. We've forgotten everything we knew in our previous life. We only bring the pain and confusion from our mother's womb. Whatever we hear is meaningless to the sound of wind, and we cannot comprehend anything we perceive. The first few weeks is like we are someone who is blind, deaf, and dumb, suffering from profound amnesia. We are hungry, we cannot say I need food. And when we're in pain, we cannot say this is hurting me. The only signs we can make are hot tears and furious gestures. Our mother often has no idea what pains and discomforts we are experiencing. We are completely helpless and have to be taught everything: how to eat, how to sit, how to walk, how to talk. Although we are most vulnerable in the few weeks of our life, our pains do not cease as we grow up. We continue to experience various kinds of suffering through our life. Just as we light a fire in a large house, the heat from the fire pervades the whole house, and all the heat in the house comes with the fire. So we are born in samsara. Suffering pervades our whole life, and all the miseries we experience arise because we took a contaminated rebirth. Since we have been born as a human being, we cherish our human body and mind and cling to them as our own. In dependence upon observing our body and mind, we develop self-grasping, which is the root of all delusions. Our human rebirth is the basis for our human suffering. Without this basis, there are no human problems. The pain of rebirth gradually turns into the pain of sickness, aging, and death, and they are one continuum. Our birth gives rise to sufferings of sickness. Just as the wind and snow of winter take away the glory of green fields, trees, forests, and flowers, so sickness takes away the youthful splendor of our body, destroying its strength and the power of our senses. If we are usually fit and well, we become sick, we become unable to engage in all our normal physical activities. Even a boxing champion who is usually able to knock out all of his opponents becomes completely helpless when the sickness strikes. When we get sick, we are like a bird that has been soaring in the sky and now suddenly shot down. When a bird is shot, all its glory and power are immediately destroyed, and it falls straight to the ground like a lump of lead. In a similar way, we become sick, we become incapacitated. If we are seriously ill, we become completely dependent on others and even lose the ability to control our bodily functions. This transformation is hard to bear, especially for those who pride themselves in independence and physical well-being. When we are sick, we feel frustrated over not being able to do our usual work or complete all the things we have to do. We become impatient with our illness and depressed about all the things we cannot do. We cannot enjoy the things that usually give us pleasure, such as sports, dancing, drinking, eating rich foods, or the company of our friends. All these limitations make us feel more miserable, and they add to our unhappiness, and we endure all the physical pain of the illness brings. When we are sick, not only do we have to experience the unwanted pain of illness itself, but also we have to experience all other undesirable things. For example, we have to take whatever our doctor prescribes, whether it's bad tasting medicine, a series of injections, a major operation, or absence for something we like very much. If we need an operation, we have to go to the hospital and accept all the conditions there. We have to eat food, and we do not like to stay in bed all day and with nothing to do, and we feel anxious about the operation. Our doctor may not explain to us exactly what the problem is and whether or not he or she expects us to survive. If we learn our sickness is incurable, we have no spiritual experience. We will suffer anxiety, fear, regret, and then we become depressed and give up hope, and we become angry with our illness. The feeling that is an enemy that maliciously deprives us of all joy. Aging. Our birth gives also rise to the pains of aging. Aging steals our beauty, our health, our figure, our fine complexion, our vitality, our comfort. Aging turns us into objects of contempt. It brings us unwanted pains and brings us swiftly to our death. As we grow old, we lose all the beauty of our youth, and our strong, healthy body becomes weak and burdened with illness. Our figure, once firm and well-proportioned, becomes bent and disfigured, and our muscle and flesh shrink so our limbs become like thin sticks and our bones poke out. Our hair loses its color and shine, and our complexion loses its luster. Our face becomes wrinkled, and our features become distorted. Milarepa said, "How do old people get up? They get up as if they were heaving a stake out of the ground. How do old people walk around? Once they are on their feet, they have to walk gingerly like bird catchers. How do old people sit down? They crash down like heavy luggage whose harness has snapped." We contemplate the following poem of the sufferings of growing old. When we are old, our hair becomes white, but it is not because it is washed as clean. It is the sign we will soon encounter the Lord of Death. When we have wrinkles on our forehead, it is not because we have too much flesh. It is warning from the Lord of Death. You are about to die. Our teeth fall out. We make no room for new ones. This is a sign we will lose the ability to eat human food. Our faces are ugly and unpleasant, but it's not because we are wearing masks. It is a sign we have lost the mask of youth. Our heads shake back and forth, but it is not because we are in disagreement. It is the Lord of Death striking our head with the stick he holds in his right hand. We walk bent and gazing at the ground. It is not because we are searching for lost needles. It is a sign we are searching for our lost beauty and memories. When we get up from the ground using all four limbs, it is not because we are imitating animals. It is a sign our legs are too weak to support our bodies. When we sit down as if we had suddenly fallen, it is not because we are angry. It is a sign our body has lost its strength. Our body sways as we walk, but it is not because we think we are important. It is a sign that our legs can no longer carry our body. Our hands shake. It is not because they are itching to steal. It is a sign the Lord of Death's itchy fingers are reaching for our possessions. We eat very little. It is not because we are miserly. It is a sign we cannot digest food. We wheeze frequently, but it is not because we are whispering mantras to the sick. It is a sign our breathing will soon disappear. When we are young, we can travel around the whole world, but we are too old to hardly make our own front yard. We become weak to engage in many worldly activities, and our spiritual activities are often reduced. For example, we do not have the physical strength to perform virtuous actions. We have less mental energy to memorize, contemplate, and meditate. We do not attend teachings that are given in habit, and we are hard to reach or uncomfortable to inhabit. We cannot help others in ways that require physical strength and good health. Deprivations such as these often make old people very sad. When we grow old, we cannot become like someone who is blind and deaf. We cannot see clearly. We cannot need stronger and stronger glasses until we can no longer read. We cannot hear clearly because it becomes more and more difficult to listen to music or to the television or to hear other people saying. Our memory fades. All activities, worldly and spiritual, become more difficult. If we practice meditation, it becomes harder to gain realizations because our memory and concentration are too weak. We cannot apply ourselves to study. Thus, we have not trained in the spiritual practices when we were younger, and the only thing to do when we grow old is to develop regret and wait for the Lord of Death to come. When we are old, we cannot derive the same pleasure from the same things we used to enjoy, such as food, drink, and sex. We are too weak to play games and often too exhausted even for entertainment. Our lifespan runs out. We cannot join old people in their activities. When they travel, we stay behind. No one wants to take us with them because when we are old, no one wants to visit us. Even our grandchildren do not want to stay with us very long. Old people often think to themselves, how wonderful it would be if young people would stay with me. I could go for walks and I could show them things. But young people do not want to be included in their plans, and their life comes to an end. Old people experience the sorrow of abandonment and loneliness, and they have many special sorrows. Death. Our birth gives rise to the sufferings of death. If during our life we have worked hard to acquire possessions, and if we have become very attached to them, we will experience a great suffering at the time of death, thinking, now I have to leave all my precious possessions behind. Even now we find it difficult to lend one of our treasured possessions to someone else, let alone give it away. No wonder we become miserable when we realize that in the hands of death we abandon everything. When we die, we are separated from even our closest friends. We leave our partner, even though we've been together for years and never spent a day apart. If we are attached to our friends, we will experience a great misery at the time of death, but all we will be able to do is hold their hands. We will not be able to stop the process of death, even if they plead with us not to die. Usually they are very attached to someone. We feel jealous if he or she leaves us on our own and spends time with someone else. But when we die, we have to leave our friends with others forever. We have to leave everyone, including our family and all those people who helped us in this life. When we die, this body that we have cherished and cared for so many ways will have to be left behind. It will become mindless like a stone and be buried in the ground or cremated. If we do not have inner protection or spiritual experience at the time of death, we will experience fear and distress as well as physical pain. Our consciousness departs from our body at death. All potentialities we have accumulated in our mind by performing virtuous and non-virtuous actions will go with it. Other than these, we cannot take anything else out of this world. All other things deceive us. Death ends all our activities, our conversation, our eating, our meeting with friends, our sleep. Everything comes to an end, and on the day of our death, we have to leave all things behind, even the rings on our fingers. In Tibet, beggars carry a stick to defend themselves against dogs. To understand the complete deprivation of death, we remember the time of death. Beggars have to leave this old stick, the most meager of human possessions. All over the world, we can see that names carved in the stone are the only possessions of the dead. Other types of suffering. We have to experience the suffering of separation and have to encounter what we do not like, failing to satisfy our desires. Before the final separation at the time of death, we have the experience of temporary separation from people and things that cause us mental pain. We may have to leave the country where all our friends and relatives live, or we may have to leave the job we like. We may lose our reputation. Many times in this life, we had to experience the misery of departing from the people we like and abandoning and losing the things we find pleasure in, are attractive. Or when we die, we have to be part of all the companions and enjoyments of the life forever. We have to meet and live with people we do not like and encounter situations we find unpleasant. Sometimes we may find ourselves in a very dangerous situation, such as a fire or flood, or where there is violence, such as in a battle, that give a riot or a battle. Our lives are less extreme situations we find annoying. Sometimes we are prevented from doing the things we want to do. On a sunny day, we may set out for the beach, but find ourselves stuck in a traffic jam. We continually experience interference with our inner demon of delusions, which disturbs our mind and our spiritual practices. There are countless conditions that frustrate our plans and prevent us from doing what we want. It is what we are naked and living in the thorn bush. Whatever we move, we are wounded by circumstances. People and things are like thorns piercing our flesh, and no situation is entirely comfortable. The more desires and plans we have, the more frustrations we experience. The more we have certain situations, the more we want to find ourselves stuck in situations we do not want. Every desire seems to invite its own obstacle. Undesired situations arise without our looking for them. In fact, only things that come effortlessly are the things we do not want. No one wants to die, but death comes effortlessly. No one wants to be sick, but sickness comes effortlessly. Since we have taken rebirth without freedom or control, we have an impure body and inhabit an impure environment, so undesirable things pour down on us. In samsara, this kind of experience is entirely natural. We have countless desires, but no matter how much effort we make, we never feel like we are satisfying them. Even when we want to get what we want, we do not get it in the way we want. We possess an object, but we get no satisfaction from possessing it. For example, we may dream of becoming wealthy, but we actually become wealthy. Our life is not the way we imagined it would be, and we do not feel we have fulfilled our desire. This is because our desires do not decrease as our wealth increases. Our wealth we have, the more we desire. The wealth we seek cannot be found because we seek an amount that will satisfy our desires, and no amount of wealth can do that. To make things worse, it is obtaining the object of desire that creating a new occasion for dissatisfaction. With every object we desire come other objects we do not want. For example, with wealth come taxes, insecurity, and complicated financial affairs. These unwished-for side effects prevent us from having fully satisfied. Similarly, we may dream of vacation in a tropical island, we may actually go there on a vacation, but the experience is never quite what we expect, and with our trip we come other things such as sunburn and great expense. If we examine our desires, we can see that we are inordinate. We want the best thing. We all want the best things in samsara: the best job, the best partner, the best